Yeah.
Hello.
I don't know what that's doing.
Hello.
He needs your camera, Dick.
Yeah. Hello.
We can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Need to turn your camera on.
Happy Tuesday. Like to welcome everyone to the November 12th meeting of the Redevelopment Commission. So I'd like to call the meeting to order.
Do we need to? We
We need a roll. Okay,
Mr. President,
thank you. I was gonna
Uh,
request that. Thanks.
Mr. Lane,
Aye, are here.
Mr. Goble,
Here.
Mr. Horvath,
Here.
Mr. Jordan.
Here.
And Mr. File.
Here.
Let the record show that Mr. File is appearing by Zoom. Mr. File, we're gonna need you to turn your camera on for your votes to count, though. Mr. File, you need to turn your camera on in order for your votes to count.
Okay, hold on. We're trying to figure this out. He's got it on. We don't know what's happening. Hold on a second.
Thank you.
I need a little help with that.
Anyway. Go ahead, Mr. Or Mr. Shalio. Are we gonna do Mr. Fotia?
Right. First thing on your agenda today is economic development area updates. You'll notice on this agenda that we have greatly expanded the number of funds that we are reporting to you. A lot of these funds, for instance, funds 14 through 19 have to do with the latest development agreement, and those should still have nothing in them because we have yet to receive any of those payments, but that will allow us to receive those payments from ADS and then keep track of which buckets they're in. Also mentioned included in there are several regarding the GM bond custodial account. So you'll notice those are the funds that don't have any appropriated funds because we don't need to appropriate the custodial funds. We're just using our financial system to track the drawdown on the GM bonds themselves. So every time we make a payment, we get the statements, and the auditor's office reflects what the US bank statements show in our own financial system.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, and I'm happy to answer any other questions that you have. And as we are expanding this listing here, if there's anything else the board would like to see, please let me know. Also, you will have a listing of all of the transactions for the month of October, as well as our open POs.
Hearing no questions. Thank you, Mr. Fotia.
The next item on your agenda is the St. Joseph County Redevelopment Commission Annual Spending Plan. And so this is a new requirement of the state. And so we're required every year to put together an annual spending plan. This is different than a budget, but it basically will detail where the buckets, where the different funds that we have, how they will be spent over the course of the year. So there's this is the first year. Barnes and Thornburg had originally put together kind of a footprint or a kind of a format that everybody could use statewide. This is brand new. We use parts of their form and then parts of other information that we had from other communities as they were putting together their plans. So just walking through this, the first section is debt payments. These are the different bonds that we have outstanding. 4 of those bonds or 3 of those bonds are new Carlisle Economic Development Area bonds. One's the Honeysuckle bond, and one is within the Northwest Cleveland Road EDA. So that's the General Sheet Metal bond. So those are the outstanding debt payments. And you see the debt payment amount there. The next column, economic development and professional services. Those are all the ED fees that we anticipate spending over the course of this next year. Grants and contributions. So this is a much smaller amount. So this relates to grant related projects that we had budgeted out. And then other services and charges, this would relate to other fees and services that come out over the course of the year. And then this reimbursement section E. Phil, do you want to maybe elaborate a little bit on this one? This is maybe a little different based on our circumstance here.
Yeah, so that section specifically refers to the monies that are reimbursed through the water infrastructure agreement that we signed with AWS earlier this year. We wanted to make sure that that was delineated within the spending plan because the spending plan essentially outlines how the redevelopment commission can spend monies throughout the year. Since we're getting those monies generally every 30 days now as we get reimbursed, we wanted to make sure there was a line in there that referenced that when we get those monies reimbursed, then we'll appropriate them as we generally do at the beginning of each meeting when we get them. And then they're outlined and accounted for in the plan. And therefore we're compliant with the statutory requirements. So a little unique for us. We'll probably be one of the few redevelopment commissions that has a section like that.
So we would ask for your approval of this. We are required, again, this is a new process, but we're required to submit this to the state in December. So we need to do that. And then in December, at the December meeting, we will have a draft of the budget for approval. So we'll basically take these numbers as the buckets and then divide the numbers up amongst all the development areas for the budget that we'll have you approve in December.
Since we have ever-changing needs and requirements, do we have to update for the state monthly if we were to have an amendment to spend monies?
Yeah, so there's no requirement necessarily to update. You'll see language at the bottom that we do reserve the right to amend the plan should
Correct.
we get additional funds that we weren't aware of, but no requirement to update on a monthly basis.
So we would do an amendment, but we wouldn't have to issue it to the state.
We would do an amendment, actually, so let's say we got additional funds we weren't expecting, we would amend the plan, you would approve, and then we file these on Gateway. So we would just file an amended plan to update the state, but no requirement to update continually unless there's new funds not accounted for.
We'll have to see how that works.
I think it's going to be a work in progress for everybody. So
Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Second?
Second.
Second,
Any other discussion? Hearing none.
We have a motion in a second, Mr. File,
aye.
Mr. Lane,
Aye.
Mr. Goble. Aye. Mr. Horvath
Aye.
and Mr. Jordan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
So the next section are the professional service agreements. So every year we have at least 3 professional service agreement buckets that we ask for approval. We'll start with the first one. This is a professional service agreement for grants and consulting and advocacy. This is with TAI Ginsburg and Associates. We've been using Matt Ginsburg and his team for a number of years. They've been instrumental on a number of grants. We recently just, and we'll talk about it later in the meeting today, received a Chrissy grant, and Matt's team was very instrumental in helping with that. This contract runs from January 1st to December 31st. The amount of the contract is a not to exceed of $67,000. I think, and we'll see at the final budget, but I believe they were under budget. And so because it's an hourly, they didn't meet the cap. So it's not like they charge a fixed amount, they charge based on what they work. So we would ask for your approval of this proposal for 2025, please.
Motion to approve, please.
So moved.
Second?
Second,
We have a motion and a second, Mr. File,
aye.
Mr. Lane,
Aye.
Mr. Goble. Aye. Mr. Horvath
Aye.
and Mr. Jordan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
So the next one we'd ask for your consideration and approval on is the 2025 financial consulting service agreement with Sender and Dalton. There is a fee schedule for their fees and services in the proposal. Again, I think we've been with Sender Dalton since I started in 2015 and would ask to continue that relationship for another year, please.
Motion to approve?
Second. We have a motion and a second, Mr. File,
Aye.
Mr. Lane,
Aye.
Mr. Goble. Aye. Mr. Horvath
Aye.
and Mr. Jordan.
Yes.
Motion carries.
So again, the next one would be legal services, and this would be with Thorne Grodnick. I would highly recommend that we continue this relationship. It's been a good relationship, and we just ask for your approval of this. Their fees and their rate schedule are contained within the proposal.
Do we have to keep Phil?
I would tell you that the Phil and Bill combo has become pretty infamous in development circles. It would be tough to, You know, unless they got another partner that's got a rhyming name with Bill, I don't know.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, Mr. File,
Aye.
Mr. Lane,
Aye.
Mr. Goble,
Aye.
Mr. Horvath,
Aye.
and Mr. Jordan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, the next section is the New Carlisle Economic Development Area. At our last meeting, we had three supplemental agreement number twos. They were all tabled, and so to have consideration on these, the three of these items would have to be untabled. So we'd probably need separate votes on each of the three to untable, then have discussion on the items.
Yeah, and if we're on tabling, I'm fine with one vote.
One vote for all.
On all three, if you
Okay.
just make the motion clear.
Motion to untable.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to untable all of three. Mr. File,
Aye.
Mr. Lane,
Aye.
Mr. Goble,
Aye.
Mr. Horvath,
Aye.
and Mr.
Aye.
Jordan. Those matters are on table.
Thank you. The first item before you is the supplemental agreement number two for the St. Joseph Energy Center Water Treatment Plant. This is a supplemental agreement to provide additional services for construction, administration, and observation services for phase three. The amounts listed in the proposal here detail that we have actually budgeted amounts relative to the AWS St. Joe County Service Agreement. Our costs are actually going to be reduced from that, so we're actually asking for less than that. The fee for this amount is again listed in the proposal. If there's any questions specifically about this proposal, I would ask Andy Lamberis with DLZ to answer those questions.
Is there a motion to approve the,
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, Mr. File,
Aye.
Mr. Lane.
Aye.
Mr. Goble,
Aye.
Mr. Horvath,
Aye.
and Mr. Jordan.
aye,
Motion carries.
The next item before you is the Fillmore Water Sanitary Utilities and SJEC Water Transmission Main Project Supplemental Agreement number two. Again, this was the Fillmore Water Project was bid out last year, is nearly complete. Supplemental Agreement number two is related to the water tower construction. At this point in time, we're working to get final design and our final location and final design. At this point in time, it's anticipated that it would be kind of right at the front entrance to the GM site. That seems to be the optimal site for the water tower project. We have a water tower. We've got to put this project out to bid first of the year. So we would ask for your approval of this contract so that we can get design services done and all the pre-development work done related to the water tower project. Again, if there's any questions about this, I'd be happy to answer them.
is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, Mr. File,
Aye.
Mr. Lane,
Aye.
Mr. Goble,
Aye.
Mr. Horvath,
Aye.
and Mr. Jordan.
Aye,
Motion carries.
The last supplemental agreement number two is the IEC lift station, force main and water main project. Again, there's a lot of different pieces of this. This contract relates to the various lift station projects. Specifically here, this will be construction administration observation for various projects, final design for the Edison Road project. And again, supplemental work on the Smilax lift station project. If there's any questions here, I'd be happy to answer those.
is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, Mr. File,
Aye.
Mr. Lane,
Aye.
Mr. Goble,
Aye.
Mr. Horvath,
Aye.
and Mr. Jordan.
Yes,
Motion carries.
The next item before you is addendum number 4, amendment number 4 to the New Carlisle Potable Water Treatment Plan Improvements Program Management Implementation Study. This is a contract with Donahue and Associates, and the original contract was done to do design work and planning work relative to the Town New Carlisle Water Treatment Plant project. But as we've seen over the course of the project, there's additional studies that need to be done, whether it's water pressure testing in areas, water maintenance, work with this water treatment or the water tower project, some additional things. In hindsight, had we set this proposal up a little differently, we might have done the original contract and then did a professional service agreement that had kind of a maybe more of an on-call type related service, because that's what's really kind of causing these contracts to, this one in particular, to extend. What we're asking for here is a addition of $20,000 to the original budget. That would put the original, or that would put the total contract amount here at $246,100. We would ask for your approval of this. This is an important one to keep moving, please.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Pyle,
Aye.
Mr. Lane,
Aye.
Mr. Gobel,
Aye.
Mr. Horvath,
Aye.
and Mr. Jordan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Oh, so the next one here, item number 5, is the IEC mobility study. This is a proposal, professional service proposal with United Consulting. So over the last several years, our real focus has been on US 20 south to State Road 2, and then as the AWS project went south of State Road 2, how we look at Strawberry Road and Strawberry Road all the way down to Johnson Road ultimately. So we're looking at mobility down south in that corridor, and a lot of that's going to be really driven based on how we need to do some improvements to the Nespajani ditch relative to Strawberry Road adjacent. So that'll be a future project. This project is really centered on US 20 from Tulip and kind of in that area to the east, all the way over to the kind of the town edge on US 20, and then connection points up to the north. So as we look at Walnut, as we look at Timothy, as we look at Spruce, and as we look at Snowberry Road, we're starting to see a lot of traffic in those corridors. And we have a project, a residential mixed use project at US 20 and Spruce that will go through rezoning probably here in December or January. So we've got some intersection improvement issues we need to be dealing with. We've got some intersection improvements at Walnut in US 20 and at Smilax in US 20 that we need to start addressing. So really the purpose of this study here is a high level study to really look at mobility as we look to go north through the corridor. Not necessarily for anything other than how we improved access, which of these corridors needs to be the main north-south corridor as we look at some development. We also will have funds as it relates to the Honeysuckle project to do reconstruction of some of the north-south roadway corridors. So as we look to do some repaving in some of those corridors based on the road use agreement, should we put some additional funds into them and start to widen the roads, or these roads we still want to keep a smaller country road segment and things like that. So this is a high level study. Ultimately, as we look at US 20 east to west, then the northern end of this project is really as we connect into Michigan. Again, we've got kind of a weird mobility corridor. If you've ever been up through the corridor, you've got Timothy Road that kind of curves across, and Hamilton Trail that kind of curves in, and it's kind of just a oddly complicated road intersection point, but then it goes up into Michigan. And so it's like, we need to start looking at how we get mobility, because we know we've got people coming from Michigan. A lot of the construction workers right now are staying in some, New Buffalo and some of those communities. And we just need to work on a north-south corridor. So this is a really, again, high-level study. Sky Metters, county engineer, had suggested we work with United Consulting. They've not worked in this project area, so it kind of a fresh, clean perspective on kind of everything happening out there. And so we kind of see that as a good opportunity to kind of open the pool up a little bit and maybe get some fresh ideas up in that corridor. So we'd ask for your approval of this proposal. The proposal is a not to exceed amount of $95,000. We think the project study period will probably be about 6 months. And so we think this is a good opportunity to really start to address some of these things that we know are going to we need to get ahead of before we're in a pinch and trying to work out of a hole. So we'd ask for your approval of this proposal, please.
A question, since it's high level, we've done a housing study. One of the things I'm sure none of us want is to have a major corridor with lots of residential or apartment dwellings. would that be part of this study or is that premature?
No, so I think that absolutely is part of it. So again, as we look at those north-south corridors, again, right now we've got a proposal at US 20 and Spruce. A lot of housing, a lot of commercial potential is part of that. So if we don't have a road network set up, but also we know that there's a project proposed at Timothy. On Timothy, we know that there's some other projects that are starting to be talked about relative to the housing study, that the housing study is really saying could be viable in that corridor. And again, I think if we don't have some of this pre-thought where we want to encourage, because there may be sites, Spruce may be one of these that we look at the end of the day and say, this is not a good corridor. It doesn't give us good access points. And this would be a project we wouldn't support. So I think, again, we've not ever really looked. I mean, we kind of looked high level a long time ago, but now we've got some momentum. And with South Shore having rezoned 120 acres on the corner of Smilax and 20 and some other projects, we're starting to put some pieces in place that really need us. I mean, we need to kind of get ahead of some things.
Would United be responsible just for the study, or would they also be doing whatever needs to happen after the study?
I think that's a good question. I think we're going to see how that study works. There may be some intersection improvement pieces that they pick up. There may be more work than that they pick. I don't know. I don't know what the study is going to tell us until we kind of get through that. So.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. File,
Aye.
Mr. Lane,
Aye.
Mr. Goble,
Aye.
Mr. Horvath,
Aye.
and Mr. Jordan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
The next proposal before you is the Bendix Drive feasibility study. So this is a professional service agreement with DLZ. So over the last several years, the county has worked with the airport authority to look at air cargo and air freight and improvements at the airport and things like that. And really have spent most of our time looking at the southwest quadrant of the airport. It's an area that the airport has amassed on a lot of land. It's the area that the South Shore train is going to be relocated through. There's a lot of development opportunities in that corridor. But one of the biggest challenges at the airport right now is the length of the runway, the length of the east-west runway in particular. And so if we ever want to get to a point where we're actually an air cargo airport that can do international air cargo, we need to have a longer runway. And the chance of improving to the west, we would be required to either lower the bypass or move the interchange at the bypass. Probably not economically responsible or feasible. So really then we look to the east. And so we've had conversations with the airport over the years about what it would take to go to the east and do those improvements. Well, a couple of years ago, City of South Bend engaged DLZ as part of the phase 2 project of their improvements on Bendix Drive from Lathrop North, basically the toll road. Bendix Drive has been reconstructed in that corridor. It was narrowed to a 3-lane segment. I think parts of it were 5, parts of it were 4. So this will take it down, took it to a 3-lane segment. So City of South Bend engaged DLZ to do phase 2, which would be from Lathrop down to Vordy Drive. And so the concept there, again, similar, 3 lanes, trail, hard surface improvements. But as part of some early conversations they had with the airport, there was actually a time where they looked at pushing Bendix Drive to the east. And what they determined is as they looked at pushing Bendix Drive to the east, and you can only push it so far because there's a landfill or a gravel pit to the east. But what they encountered was a landfill that had pre-existed, probably early 50s landfill that is in that corridor. So it became very challenging to push the road too far east. So road projects started getting designed by DLZ. It became a point where we had one last opportunity. And so the county, the airport, City of South Bend, MACOG got together and said, let's take one last stab study at this and see if there's some other things we could do. In the process of that conversation, maybe you've traveled to airports where they've got the road dips down and there's a overpass of the runway over the top. O'Hare has one. Some of the bigger airports have those. So we started the conversation with City of South Bend. What if we lower Bendix Drive? What if we put the runway over the top of the roadway? Well, in the course of the conversation, there was conversation about a material called EMAS, which stands for, if we can find it, engineered materials arresting system. So basically it's, I would liken it to if you're ever on a highway and they have those runaway lanes for the semi trucks as you're going down the hill, and then they've got the sand and the gravel up the side of the hill. Basically, this is a material not open and uncompacted, but it's in compacted blocks that you put at the end of a runway. And you put that at the end of the runway. So in the event that the plane goes long, it's got something to slow the plane before it goes over the roadway. This is material that exists at a number of airports across the United States, number of airports in this climate. O'Hare has them, Cleveland has them. There's some other airports again in this kind of weather climate that have them. So we said, why don't we take one more fresh look at runway extension before you build Bendix Drive in a permanent condition? Because once it's built in concrete, we're never going to pick it up and move it again. So what we'd like to do is do this study. This is a study with DLZ. DLZ would partner with Mead and Hunt. Mead and Hunt is the airport's engineer of record. They've worked with them on their master plan. They have all their data. So the two will partner together on this study. This opens up, Mead and Hunt is FAA certified and does all the work with FAA. So this is an opportunity to use those data points that they have and use DLZ's data points together. We'd look at 3 different scenarios for runway extension, 700 feet and up to 1,000 feet. If we got to 1,000 feet, that would make us rated to do international cargo from here to Asia. So that would give us an opportunity to do that as a direct, because that would give us enough runway length. So we'd ask for this study, ask for your approval of this study. We think this is, again, with the past work we've done with the airport and everything else going on, we think this is kind of a good, reasonable partnership to make this determination on if this can work. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to stumble my way through an answer.
How does that 1,000 feet affect passenger traffic as far as airline traffic?
So we could also, I mean, so while it certainly has benefits to air cargo, we certainly have the same for international, you know,
Yeah, they're
passenger.
the same.
Yeah, so air pass, as I understand it, just from conversations we've had about this, the air passenger doesn't need as much runway, but it certainly does with full fuel and full passenger loads, things like that. Also will help, just even in instances when the president comes to town with a bigger airplane and things like that, you know, we can accommodate presently, but the longer runway certainly helps with those kind of accommodations. And as Josh knows, periodically we have famous people that come to Notre Dame, and so sometimes they bring their big plane.
That flies out six weekends a year.
Yeah. And they're kind of heavy too, so if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. File,
Aye.
Mr. Lane,
Aye.
Mr. Goble,
Aye.
Mr. Horvath,
Aye.
and Mr. Jordan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, the next item on your agenda is for appraisal services for a parcel that's located at 340 Marble Lane. The proposal in front of you is from Michael's Appraisal Services. This parcel is located in allocation area number 5 near the town center of New Carlisle. The town has asked the Redevelopment Commission to help with the acquiring of this parcel for future development and future road improvement projects. Michaels and Associates, their proposal amount is $625. Staff would request approval of this funding for the appraisal.
Their motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. File,
Aye.
Mr. Lane,
Aye.
Mr. Goble,
Aye.
Mr. Horvath,
Aye.
and Mr. Jordan.
Aye.
Okay, the next item is for the same parcel. Since we always get 2 appraisals, this proposal is from Franklin Robinson. And his proposal to do the appraisal for this parcel is $500. Staff requests commission's approval for this request.
Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. File,
Aye.
Mr. Lane,
Aye.
Mr. Goble,
Aye.
Mr. Horvath,
Aye.
Mr. Jordan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
So resolution 2024-21, this is a resolution of the Redevelopment Commission approving additional funding for the reconstruction of the Nesbitt Ditch. We're moving moving along with the Nespajani ditch. Structures are in place. We're at the point now where the ditch is, we're just digging the last little section that gets us the connection to the culvert so that we can start to work on moving the water and everything next year. This proposal here, this $26,127 relates to materials that had to be put over the structures that we put in. Originally, when the main structure at Fillmore Road was put in, there was anticipated stone that needed to be put on the structure before Fillmore Road could be put over the top of it. The stone that was put on needed to be replaced with different thicker stone. So we had to remove the stone, put on new stone before the new roadway could be put over the top of it. This is part of the challenge when you have one firm designing one project and another firm designing another project. This was just one of these incidentals that after they built the structure company said it would be better if you put in this other type of material to guarantee the structural integrity of the bridge. So what we'd ask for your approval of is this resolution. This resolution or this proposal for the change order has gone to the Drainage Board already, met with their approval. Their approval was subject to your funding of this at this amount. Any questions? I would be happy to answer them.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. File,
Aye.
Mr. Lane,
Aye.
Mr. Goble,
Aye.
Mr. Horvath,
Aye.
and Mr. Jordan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
The last professional service proposal is actually up in the AM General Economic Development area, and this is actually north and just outside of the economic development area. But over the last several months, we've really been trying to work on finish up the Capitol Avenue master plan. We've had stakeholder meetings. We've actually got one more scheduled this week with Harris Township. So a lot of work is being done. But as part of that, there continues to be discussion about how we could best utilize the Granger subdistrict of the St. Joe County Regional Water Sewer District to either provide sewer or water services in kind of the southern area, maybe to benefit some projects in that area, not only in the sub-district area, but maybe even grow their services south of their current boundaries. What we'd like to do is enter into a professional service agreement with JPR to do some additional study work on the utility network. JPR is the engineer of record for the Regional Water Sewer District, has been their engineer since, as I understand, the start of the district. And so what we'd like is for your approval to enter into this contract to get this data. This could help with some of the prospects that we have up in that area and just looking at some other issues. Again, one of the things we think that's a benefit to this work is as we start to put a little bit more intensive focus on how to address the long-term sewer and water issues up in the Granger area. This updated information really gives us kind of that next tier of data to help us start to do some analytics up there. So the proposal is in the amount of $82,000 and staff would request your approval of this proposal, please.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. File,
Aye.
Mr. Lane.
Aye.
Mr. Goble,
Aye.
Mr. Horvath,
Aye.
and Mr. Jordan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Under the same section, the AM General Economic Development area, earlier this month, we received notice from the federal government that we received a CRISI grant for the Patriot Rail to CN connection project. That's the study that looked at extending Elkhart and Western Railroad up the east side of Capitol Avenue up to the Canadian National Tracks. This is strictly a study. It's not a design study. It's nothing more than a feasibility study to look at the potential to do this and then starting to determine obstacles, challenges, and lay the framework for a NEPA, National Environmental or the environmental study that would have to be done with future project if we determine the project will move forward. This is we think, again, much like the sewer study we did, the rail study is very timely with all the other stuff we're doing with Capitol Avenue. But just wanted to make you aware of this award. You had previously awarded or previously granted funds to match this grant back, I think it was earlier this summer, maybe late spring. It's been a while, but just want to make you aware of this award. So at
Thank
this
you.
point, we don't have anything in any of the other economic development areas, although I would tell you, if you're driving west on US 20, just west of Pine Road and look north, you can see the construction of the new Lippert building on Old Cleveland Road. It is a very 600,000 square feet. It's a big building, and I would not have expected to be able to see it from US 20, but it's big enough that it does stand out. So that's exciting. But that'll be a good project for us, as that will generate some revenue for that TIF district to help us pay off that bond, so we can maybe close that TIF early. The last item on the agenda relates to 2025 meeting calendar. There are 2 meeting calendars circulated in your packet. For years, we have been the second Tuesday of the month. As we start to now get revenue in on a regular basis from Amazon, that money doesn't usually come in until right at the time of the meeting or right after the meeting. So then the money sits, and that money needs to be appropriated. It would be better. It would also be better if we shifted to the third Tuesday, because then we wouldn't have this meeting conflict trying to rush through a meeting from a 9 o'clock to a 10 o'clock and run into a conflict with the Board of Commissioners. So I give you both calendars, and we would just ask for your consideration. And then what we would do is get input over the next month from you all, and then make a vote at the next meeting, unless you're just comfortable making a motion to vote on it today.
Would it impact what council and commissioners are able to vote on in their meetings, or?
It really does. It actually works out better for us, because the times that we approve a contract that then needs to go to the Board of Commissioners, we're trying to rush it through from 1 hour to the next hour. The Board of Commissioners meet at night at 6 o'clock at night on the third Wednesday. So it would actually give us the day to get it filed, get copies done and stuff like that. So it'd actually be better for us from a staff perspective. I think the only conflict point we run into is trying to get stuff to area plan, if we have something that has to go to them, because they meet on the third Tuesday. So
Motion to approve the third Tuesday.
okay.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. File,
Aye.
Mr. Lane,
Aye.
Mr. Goble,
Aye.
Mr. Horvath,
Aye.
and Mr. Jordan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Well, thanks. You saved us from.
Okay, we now move to the public comment section. Anyone would like to speak, please approach the podium and give us your name and address, and you're limited to 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning, Dan Caruso, 305 Compton Street, New Carlisle. I'm listening to the conversation this morning. I was happy with some of the answers I got before the meeting here. But I still have one or two issues. My ex-wives will tell you I got a whole lot more than 1 or 2 issues. The 340 Marvel Lane. I understand you're trying to encourage the seller to sell because you want that property. But I noticed that the 5 comps used in comparison to that property either refied or sold in March of this year for $299,000. And the 5 comps range from 275 to 322. Like I said, I understand you're putting a kicker in there, trying to to motivate the guy to make a deal with you. And I guess that's okay if I'm selling my house. Just an observation. Another observation I've seen is the exponential increase in vehicle traffic into and out of that area. I don't know if you're the body to talk to or not. Somebody's going to hear this. The cars on roads that they really shouldn't be on. I think these guys have a competition on who can have the loudest pickup truck, because they just parade down Dunn Road at about 7:30 in the morning. And it sounds like just semi after semi after semi, but it's these guys with pickup trucks headed down into the work area. And with Bill talking about possibly getting a new corridor north to south. I don't know if you can talk to Amazon. They appear willing to work with us on everything. Can you maybe get them to put out an advisory to the construction crews that can they possibly stick to Walnut and Smilax and Larison, State Road 2 and US 20 in and out of there, because they come up early. They're on Early Road, they're on Dunn Road, they're on Timothy Road, just lining up. And it is in the morning and in the evening at about school bus time. And I've seen some of them go flying around cars that they didn't feel like somebody was sitting on talking on their phone and just whipped around them. I feel we're tempting fate in the community with our children walking to and from the buses, especially now when it's still dark in the morning when they're headed for the bus stop. Can Amazon put out an advisory for the construction crews to stick to the main corridors? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in attendance would like to speak? Seeing none, is there anyone online who would like to speak?
Yes. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Steve Francis, 2-Day Lake Drive, Clay Township. Want to speak to two items, the studies that were mentioned by Mr. Shalio. The one is the corridor or the mobility study, the transportation study up north of 20. I thought you asked a great question. I'm not sure who asked it about not making it another corridor. You may not want to make it a corridor, and I realize this is just a study to examine feasibility, but when you improve roads in that fashion, then land speculation occurs and then rezoning occurs to commercial. And I wonder if there's also an expansion of the EDA involved up north at some point. These are valid questions. I appreciate that the board asked that question because this is now slated on the new comprehensive plan as intensive agriculture up in that area. You know, people living in Michigan aren't paying St. Joe County property taxes, which was one of the reasons why we established the IEC, is to improve the property tax base in St. Joe County. On the east side, the railroad corridor study up Capitol Avenue. I stated at a Granger community meeting back in March, I think, that there were plans to establish an intermodal facility and connecting those two rail lines. And that's indeed what we're not calling it that, but that's indeed what this would entail. There's a lot of sensitive areas over there, including Juday Creek, including flood zones. It's supposed to be agricultural, but as you know, it's now an industrial zone. We'll call it IEC East, if you will. And I'm concerned that there's a health facility. I'm not saying that it shouldn't be studied, but I do think that there'll be a lot of concern, and I hope the RDC and you as responsible members on it will ask a lot of questions about the appropriateness of an intermodal facility over in that congested area. It's very congested as it is now and close to residential. Thank you.
You. Is there anyone else online who would like to speak? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion in a second, Mr. File,
Aye.
Mr. Lane.
Aye.
Mr. Goble,
Aye.
Mr. Horvath,
Aye.
and Mr. Jordan.
Aye.
We are adjourned.